Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session Ideas into Action, Organizing as a Group or Network for Change. There is British Sign Language available and Chinese language available. So if you just click on the interpretation button in the Zoom panel at the bottom, you'll get access to those. So 6 years ago, the book Doughnut Economics was published. 3 years ago, DEAL, Doughnut Economics Action Lab, was launched. Today, there are over 50 groups and networks organizing for change in their place using Doughnut Economics. Why is that? My name is Rob, and I'm the Communities and Art Lead at DEAL. And in this session, I'm going to share some of my observations of why that could be, as well as some tips for those who want to organize in this way as a group or a network in your place, organizing for change. I'm here at the Doughnut Hub. I've been getting that wrong for the last few days, been practicing Doughnut Hub. And I'm joined by practitioners from the Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition. So this is a hybrid session. So I'm facing people in the room here whilst talking to you here online as well. And we'll hear from two of the members of the coalition, Rosa, Tibosch and Maartje, who will share some of their insights about the work that they've done, organizing as a network here in Amsterdam. And then we will open up some breakout rooms for you to share your experiences and hear the experiences of others. These will be facilitated by 3 other practitioners from across the DEAL community, from Kyle Su in London, from Geeta Sharma in Middlesbrough, and from Manas Rath in Mumbai. They will be talking about how to get started, how to grow the network, and also how to work with the municipality, building relationships with the municipality. This session is called Ideas into Action. So what is it about these ideas of the doughnut that are causing or inspiring people to take action? If we have a think about that, the doughnut, the idea at the heart of Doughnut Economics, we know that some people can be quite intimidated by the word economics. I certainly know that I was. But we've yet to find anyone who's scared of donuts. It's an inviting, tasty idea that people can pick up and use in all kinds of contexts. And we find people are able to talk about economics in a way that they didn't think was possible if they're not, don't think of themselves as an economist. So it's a way in to economic conversations for all kinds of people in communities in all different contexts. But it's also a credible idea that is sourced from the most globally, politically agreed social goals and the leading Earth system scientists. And so it's gaining traction with governments and with businesses. And it's holistic. That means it brings together lots of things into one goal, into one model. It brings together the social goals and all those dimensions. It brings together ecological qualities and all of those dimensions too. So all of these qualities in one place. And so we can look at it and we can see ourselves in it. The things that we care about, the things that we, our personal experiences, and the things that we might be working on. And crucially, the last thing I think that's making people pick this up is that it's adaptable. We don't give you the donut and say you have to use this exact model and you mustn't change it. You can actually pick it up and play with it. You can get creative. You can make it relevant for your local culture and context, your local nature and your local social needs. And so that process of taking a global goal and bringing it into your community is one that invites you to work together with the people who know that best. So it's engaging for communities. It's also engaging for governments and businesses. It's holistic, so it connects to so many different things people are working on and invites us to work together on those things. And we think these are some of the qualities that are the reasons why people are picking these up and organizing for change as networks in their place. So I'd like to now share a few tips that we've learned from the practice of these networks, these over 50 networks now around the world. And to illustrate this, I'm going to use examples from how we have co-created Global Doughnut Day itself. In a way, is like a distributed global network of all of the places doing this work. So the first thing to share is that the first tip is to create a compass for your journey. So what is a compass? If you're setting out on a journey, a compass is your guide, your trusty guide. And if you have it in your pocket, you know, no matter what you encounter, you can always turn to your compass to find a way. If you create a compass that is clear and engaging and inviting, other people might see that compass and go, yeah, I like the direction that that's heading, and I can be a part of that too, and align to this journey that you might be going on. So creating, yes, a compass for your journey. So you might not necessarily know exactly the path you're going to go on, but together and collectively, when other people join you, you can find a way. And the compass won't necessarily always stay the same. If we think about the donut as a compass for human prosperity in the 21st century, it started in 2011 as an idea, and then bit by bit evolved into the donut we have today. And indeed, there's a donut version 3 currently being made. And so this compass can evolve as well. So create a compass for your journey. And using the example of Global Doughnut Day, the idea was born in October last year when Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition created their Doughnut Deals Day. And it was seen by people around the world. And they said, what if we were to do this in our place? What if we were to do this in our place on the same day? And so the coalitions of Munich and London, Cambridge and Oxford contacted Rosa, the community manager at Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition, to say, how could we make this work? And so Rosa and I worked together on this idea to say, what would the compass for this journey look like? And what was very clear from the outset is that it wouldn't be something that the deal team would create and then tell everyone to do in a certain way. It'd be something that would be co-created by everyone, welcoming in the gifts, the ideas and imagination and the values, the principles of everyone. And so we designed the initial intention and the principles for what this could be. And then we shared that with a few close allies. 27 places responded to the initial invitation that went out. And so together we co-designed all of the building blocks of what today could become. And that involved creating some governance and stewardship principles along the way of what this would mean, where we said how we create Global Doughnut Day is just as important as the day itself, which was a bit of a relief when I was coming here today. Yes, there's amazing stuff happening in person, but what we've created along the journey has been so informative of what's possible if we're to design in a distributed way around the world. And that all comes from the compass that we created, but also being ready to evolve and adapt so that next year it might change. This is the first one and we're learning. Things will go wrong, we'll never get it perfectly right. So how do we learn and evolve that compass for next year? So that comes to the second tip, which is to be adaptive and agile as you go on this journey. So thinking of being agile and adaptive, what does that mean in practice? So when you are welcoming people to be a part of your project or your coalitional group, they will come with their own perspectives, their own needs. So how do you adapt to those as they become part of this group? How do you welcome their new ideas, their energy, their resources? How do you adapt to the people who need to take a step back? To check I'm not going to fall into a plant when I take a step back. How do you adapt when people need to rest? So your core group of the people who are driving this work forward will evolve over time as new people come with new energy ideas and resources and people step back. So how do we adapt and evolve? And when you encounter new things on your journey, there will be obstacles that you have to overcome together. There will be new opportunities that arise. There will be paths that close and end. There will be paths that open up that you wouldn't expect. So it's not only about being adaptive to the people you are on this journey with, but also the things that you encounter that through your work. So within Global Doughnut Day, can you believe that it wasn't even on the plan for the deal team to be working on Global Doughnut Day in January? We had no idea, but actually we're very fortunate to have a strategy that allows us to be adaptive. We call it an emergent strategy, very fancy words for it, that allow us to go with the energy of the community. Kate and Carlotta shared these principles in the opening connection. Go with the energy, be inspired by peer-to-peer action. And so we have gone with the energy of Amsterdam and Munich and London and other places that have wanted to create this. And we set in the compass the intention to co-design it with everyone. So everyone who joined, every local organizer from Beijing to Mumbai to Melbourne to Mexico City, every local organizer who became part of this journey, we would adapt to their principles, to their ideas and their intentions. And Rosa, who will speak in a moment, led the co-design of the online program that we're now watching. And so we were constantly adapting to that energy as we went. But some places who are part of that, Oxford and Cambridge, are doing amazing work. But they said we don't have the timing isn't quite right for us to do some local organizing on that day. But we know from their work they've done some fantastic engagement with the municipalities and with stakeholders across their place. But they took a step back for Global Doughnut Day, and I could see one of the members just before joining is watching now, so they're able to see the energy ebb and flow amongst different places. So that's to be agile and adaptive as you go. The last tip I want to share is that relationships are at the heart of this work. Earlier in the year, I was with the Norway Doughnut Group, part of their National Doughnut Festival. And Bjorn Hauger, who was one of the initiators of that work, told me that with their work with the donut, it is all about building relations, building relations, building relations. He said it 3 times to really land the point, but it stayed with me that they recognize the donut has the power to bring people together and to connect. But when you're together, that doesn't necessarily, that's not the end of the story. You have to build that relation. And the way they do it is to start by listening. And if you listen and you're curious about what you hear, you can really begin to tune in with the needs, the aspirations, the challenges of the people you're working with. So how can you tune in with the needs, the aspirations, the challenges of all the people in your community as you go and build those relationships, build the bridges that might currently be divided across different people in your place, different communities, different roles. He has this wonderful term that I learned called appreciative inquiry, which recognizes everyone brings their own gifts, their own perspectives. It's not to look at what we lack. It's to look at all the things that we can bring to this collective work. And there are so many gifts we have. I'm lucky to facilitate some workshops on doughnut economics. And some people say, I don't have gifts to bring to this. But actually, when you slow down and tune in to your needs, but also the gifts you have, to share those with others, it's really extraordinary how many gifts there are in even just a small group, a small core team, let alone when this ripples out and you engage wider stakeholders and engage all the different businesses and politicians and civil servants and educators in a place. Oh my goodness, the gifts that come through. And with doughnut economics, we say, how do we see the big picture of all of these economic roles across a place, from the market to the state, to the household and the commons? These can be at loggerheads. They can be, as Kate mentioned in the talk just before, the market or the state. How can actually we recognize every role has its strengths, every role has its limitations, but when they work together, oh my goodness, the potential for networking really steps up. So within Global Doughnut Day, through the organizing that we've been doing, at the heart of the work has been how we relate with each other. In the guide that you may have seen online, there's a participation guide about how we relate with each other with generosity and curiosity and openness and respect. We co-designed the principles of stewardship and governance for all of the co-designers, all of what ended up being about 50 local places organizing Global Doughnut Day together. Those principles and guidelines had relationships at the heart of that work. So the three things the relationships is also something that we invite you to put right into the heart of your compass. Because what we believe is not necessarily what you create. You don't necessarily think we need to redesign the whole city to, in the next 3 years, and it's going to be, and you sort of see exactly how that's going to be. Yes, we want to create a vision, but it's how we get there that we believe is the opportunity to create a new economy, how we relate with each other, with all of these different qualities of what it means to be a new economy. It's our being that gives us the opportunity in every single moment. So an invitation today is, if you're meeting in person, think about how you can relate with each other with that care and the connection that creates the economy that we want to be in, really tuning into the needs of others. So those 3 tips, again, create a compass for your journey. Be agile and adaptive as you go, and then have relationships at the heart of the work. So to bring that to life, we're going to hear some perspectives from some local perspectives, first of all. And I'm going to invite Rosa Tibosch, who's, you might want to introduce yourself as well, who's the community manager at Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition, who's going to share a bit about the strategy and how Amsterdam does it. And Rosa and I have been working together for the last, 11 or so months on this. So it's just such a pleasure to be on, this, stage together to do this work. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure. And now we get to hear how you do things here in Amsterdam.
Thank you so much. So I'm Rosa. I'm the coordinator of the Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition, and I just want to start by saying it's so amazing that after last year and the amazing energy that we had everywhere in Amsterdam, that for the past few months we've been working with people worldwide, and now what's happening here is happening everywhere. And like Rob already said, just the journey to get here already, and the energy and all of the ideas and learning what's happening everywhere has been absolutely amazing, and that has been an absolute joy. Let's see, do we have slides? Yeah, can I get the next one? So I wanted to start at the start. So in Amsterdam around 2019, we started the Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition. And relating to what Rob said before me, over the past 3 years, we've trying to build that community, and we've really been searching like, what is the good way to do that? We didn't get it right away. We really had a trial and error. So we were looking into how can we build the right conditions for the city to get closer to Amsterdam. But that turned out to be quite complicated. So then we moved on to, okay, so Deal has these amazing themes. Maybe we can use those. You know, you have education, you have research, you have community. And that kind of really started to tag on, and we really started to build a very strong community. So if I can get the next slide. So we had these meetups. They were all online because we started during COVID. That was a fun and challenging experience, but in a way it worked out because it made it very low key for a lot of people to join us online. And we started building this community further and further. We set up a platform where people can upload their profile, or they can upload a project, or they can upload an event. And that way we made it very low key for people to join this community, which just grew bigger and bigger. Sorry. And then we moved on. We figured, okay, what is the next step that we can take from these community meetups? Well, COVID is finally over, so let's see how many people we can get together. And we started organizing these donut festivals. So we started with the Donut Days, and then we had last year the Donut Deal Day. And then this year we have the Amsterdam Donut Days, joined by so many people worldwide, which is really awesome. And that was the point where we thought, okay, like over the last 3 years, we've been building this community. Now, what is the next step that we can take? How can we really strategically work together to bring Amsterdam closer to the donuts? So we got together with some of the pioneers which had been with us from the start, who had really taken on a pioneer of pioneer kind of mentality. And we got together to co-create this strategy. And and what we came up with is the following. So the absolute core, I should have translated that one. I'm so sorry. The absolute core of that is that we are trying to make visible what is already happening and then try to connect that as much as possible. But then on top of that, now with the strategic collaboration, we have 3 pillars that we are working on. The first one is, how do we make this a story for everyone in Amsterdam? Because so far we really went with the go where the energy is, and that has worked immensely well to make this beautiful community. But how do we reach the people that you don't immediately reach by that, who like skip the donut, the sea economy, and are like, not me? How do we get to those people? Then the second one is strengthening and finance. Now, I think there are a lot of people in this room who will feel this one. There is a lot of voluntary work involved in working with Doughnut Economics, working with sustainability, trying to change the world, really being in a pioneering role where, you know, you're so new that no one really knows how to finance you, or there is no model to do that. So there's a lot of voluntary work. How can we work together to strengthen those people? How can we perhaps professionalize it, or work together to find subsidies, or just rethink finance altogether? And no, we can still say. And lastly, learning and integration. So all this amazing work that these pioneers are doing, how do we make sure that those aren't one-off amazing experiments, but how do we learn from that and from the obstacles that they encounter in the system, and then work together with people from the system, like the knowledge institutions, like the municipality, also like the businesses? How do we work together with them and say, these are the structural things that need to change? We've learned that from our pioneers. Let's work together to change that once and for all, so that every pioneer that comes after them can just straight on do what we all want to do. That brings us closer to the donuts. Yeah. So we're very excited to work together with these new partners that we have found, that actually has helped us as the Amsterdam Doughnut Coalition to really professionalize and take the next step and be more sustainable as an organization. And we're going to hear from one of those partners, and that is Maartje from the Green Hub, who has like accepted us here so gracefully. So
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here in the Green Hub. Thank you, Rosa. And it's really great to be part of this team. And this is really co-creation on top, to have global and local combined in one workshop. So thank you, Bram, for the technique, and Hilbert, I need to mention it, and everybody who supported it. Okay, a lot is already mentioned, and I'm really interested to deep dive with all of you into the co-creation part, but also globally. I like to share some insights from the Green Hub perspective in our journey from the past years. Yeah, you can start. We are a local cooperative in Amsterdam Southeast, also known as the Bijlmer, and that's just the most beautiful place to live, I have to say, with 170 cultures, so much resilience. And yeah, I think we have the gift and knowledge, all is here to accelerate, to innovate, to bring so many people and organizations together. And this way working in one team with high educated, lower educated, different cultures, different ages is an example on itself in really like to share and how we can make that more as a new normal. So yeah, here you can see some numbers in what we do. And next slide, yeah. So it started with inspiring by the Doughnut Economics, bring it into practice with donut deals, as was mentioned already before. And that's just, or not just, but we always work with multiple value cases and starting from the community perspective. So people coming here for ideas, for initiatives, and bringing the different people together in making bigger impact. In particular with a just and inclusive energy transition, it all started with green gas, to have a dream for the whole area to create green gas from organic waste. And from there, yeah, you can go to the next slide. We found many ways to form all kinds of self-organized circles. One of the circles is the quick fix. You've seen the quick fix team here. There's Juan, there's Joseph, there's Aman. And it started with a really, really small pilot to help people in isolating their households in a very low key way. And now we are doing big projects, 200 households at the same time with local partners, with multiple funding. So we really started small, and now it's a running team reaching out to a lot of people, and also to people who don't open the door, if it's municipal or social housing corporation or companies from outside. And that's really our assets. Yeah, next slide. So we've learned by doing as a community, as Living Lab from Doughnut Economy, bring it into practice, that for us to work in circles really works well. So we have the bike kitchen, yeah, from the one who is here, who can experience in the different rooms. We just have a live cast with radio at this morning. And that is how we really work distributive. Yeah, next. And what we notice is that we need places, local hubs, local living labs, to bring all the people and organizations together. Because in these challenges, we cannot do it alone. And we work with a lot of knowledge institutions and companies and local government. And this is the place as an experiment environment where it all comes together, where we can innovate with the pentahelix and all stakeholders involved. Because we know, looking at the picture at the global, at the world or a city level, we need all actors, and it is very chaotic. And that's how we can work in a more organic way. Well, I think the lessons here I'm sharing are also very similar. You can go to the next slide to Rob, because we are now ending a big program from 3 years, and we have discovered some transition keys we like to share with you. And one is how important it is to create a safe and brave space. So we also invite everybody who comes to cross your boundaries, because we need to do something. We cannot do it in a normal way. So that's why you see the blindfolded. That's how we all are also disruptive and sometimes activist. Yeah, next slide. As I said already, we are creating an inclusive work environment. And what is so beautiful to hear is that people who work here or active here say, yeah, I can just be myself here. And you can bring the best. So the appreciative inquiry is completely embedded. And that's also a distributed way of working, looking at the Doughnut Economics, because if you work inclusive, you make use of all talents and gifts, and you don't have one power. These self-organized circles, they are making their own decisions with their own feeling of ownership. And that's how we bring inclusive working into practice. We value all perspectives. Yeah. Next one. Celebration and rituals are very important for us. So we have to celebrate. Let's also celebrate the gifts. Again, appreciate inquiry, celebrate all the gifts that people bring and acknowledge it. so people can be acknowledged and take the next step. Yeah, this is really for us how donut deal making works to create equal partnerships with businesses, with municipal, that they don't see as just only cute. Oh, this is so nice. No, this is serious stuff we are doing. And how can we be acknowledged for it in changing the game? And that is really the struggle, the endurance also it takes. That's maybe next slide or the one after. Yeah, it takes endurance. And that's what we have and what we bring in. We just keep on going. And that's how we make the circles bigger. And we invite you all to have the endurance to reach out to the next step. I think that's most important I like to share. Maartje Bos for the global group. You can find me on LinkedIn and groenehub.org. And thank you for this opportunity. I think this is the moment where...
Yes, I'm going to introduce how we now split. We've got a hybrid event.
Yeah.
So lots of people in the room here and people online. So for those online, Khan is going to open up some breakout rooms. We have 3 rooms for you to choose from. The first is on getting started. And Kyle Su, who's part of the London Doughnut Economy Network and also part of B-Lab UK, is going to share a few stories about his work, but then open it up for you to share your examples too. Then with the second breakout room is on growing the network. And Geeta Sharma from the Borough Doughnuts group in Middlesbrough is going to share her experiences and then and then open the facilitator discussion with your examples too. And then Manas Rath in Mumbai, who's the CEO of Leap Cities, who builds networks of stakeholders across Mumbai and building relationships with the municipality, is going to lead us that breakout room on working with the municipality. So we're going to have just under 20 minutes for this. And so hopefully there'll be a message when we're nearing the end of those breakout rooms. And we'll come back together at the end. We've got our own conversation to have here. So we'll see you in 15 to 20 minutes.
Great.
And how people need to be held together and all of that. And all of that is very clear. But how did they get support? Because it's not as if you can do this in your spare time, right? People have day jobs. And how do you do this also? Because it takes a lot of energy and time and everything. And also, what did they actually do? Because they're talking about bringing change in Amsterdam as a city, as against, within a small organization or an enterprise. So just to be clear, I'm an astrophysicist, and I would be interested to know how maybe within academia we can build similar groups, which is what is at the back of my mind. But I was curious about what was presented about Amsterdam.
Hello. I'm just going to grab the mic back. I'm back. I've got recording power, so it's going there. So thank you for taking the initiative to introduce yourselves. We're going to have more time to chat later, but I'll just kind of get started now. So we've got about 20 minutes together, which is not a huge amount of time. These breakout rooms are never long enough to kind of get around to everything. So I just want to sort of recognize that. But I'm hoping in the chat, if we've put kind of our contact details, you certainly can see me. So if anyone's got any follow-up questions, you can send them my way as well. We can follow up here. But essentially, how this is going to work, we've probably got about 5 minutes where I'm going to be talking at you to share some of my experiences, kind of going through this process of getting started with Doughnut Economics. And then we've got 15 minutes where I'm supposed to facilitate. And I'll just open up and just allow anyone to like chime in with their views and thoughts as well. How does that sound? All good? Brilliant. Right. Well, first of all, happy Doughnut Day. Welcome to this. It's kind of incredible that this energy just come together today. My name is Kyle Su. As Rob said, I work at B-Lab UK. So I don't know how many of you are aware of the B Corp movement and this idea of business as a force for good. So that's what I do, is kind of my day-to-day job. But outside of that, I'm really fascinated by the concept of Doughnut Economics and really kind of like what's the sort of system level, like how do we perceive the economic system, how do we change it? And I think certainly I would definitely echo what Rob was saying at the start about this kind of idea of economics. For me, when I was growing up, it's like, no, cleverer people deal with that stuff. And it was kind of like an immutable law. And actually going through the process of reading the book and recognizing actually the economic system is a product of human imagination. And so it can be changed. And I think recognizing that power and like, what does it mean at kind of a local level and people band together is really powerful. So that was the kind of start of my journey. And that's probably going back to probably around 2017 when I started to move into sort of like social enterprise and social impact. But really, kind of between then and now, I read the book, went through it. I was like, what do you do next with it? What the communities are forming? And so what I found kind of the starting point is probably kind of three things. And these are sort of the three very short stories I'm going to share with you about my journey about getting started. And it's a really opportune point that I'm making having this kind of conversation today, because I want your help as well. So I've moved from London to Manchester, actually, and there's no Doughnut Economics scene. We're looking to get started. And so how to actually embrace some of these kind of principles that we're learning about today if you sort of might want to catalyze this action in a new area. So if you've got any tips for me, I'd love it. So yeah, I'll spend about 5 minutes to kind of go through my experiences. Hopefully you'll glean some information from that, which is useful. But yeah, the first one is when I started reading the book, I came across the Dear website and I saw, oh, when it first started, I was like, oh, there's a London group, fantastic. And I jumped into it and there wasn't a huge amount happening. And I think what happened was with a lot of these things, it's voluntary. It's people coming together by shared passion. And the challenge I found is it wasn't kind of sticking because people had no time, people had no resources, kind of wonky levels of commitment. And it was kind of stop-start. So you'd have a meeting and there won't be one for months and then people come together. I think since then, it's kind of starting to get into a bit of a rhythm. But the lesson I took from that certainly is you can't just be fueled by the energy or the interest alone. You need to have different people, sort of different skill sets to enable this to happen, because these are kind of very formative, fragile, tentative and emergent practices. And sometimes you just need a bit of that structure. And I think, you know, even when you're going to, you know, you're growing up at school and you have that group project and no one did any work and there was one person who was doing all of the night before, we kind of fall into these rhythmic patterns as well. So what I would say about that experience, especially with these groups, is one, find if there are already ones there, don't try and start your own, link up with them, but just be really mindful that it needs time, energy and commitment to do that. The second one is what I call the aborted reading group. So I was like, right, great, I'm going to join a reading group now. And it was great, accountability. I can reread the book, because I don't know about you, I'll read a book and then forget about it straight afterwards. So to sort of go through those motions again. And I joined. But the problem I found was that there was one person there who would always talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm an introvert. So I was like here, slowly fading away into the background. I was like, and the problem with that was about power dynamics and setting up kind of these spaces to be safe. And I didn't feel safe in that instance. So I just fell away. And I think what we really need to be careful when we're starting is that people are coming from different levels of understanding, backgrounds, diversities, you know, in terms of like neurodivergence, or even like when they can show up, because they might have things like childcare duties. So it's really important when you're forming these groups to really recognize that people are showing up in different ways and really be open and accessible about that. And I know that Deal's kind of done some accessibility documents. There's loads of different tools and resources there. But the one I'd highlight, if you remind me, I'll put it in the chat, is the team canvas. So this is a free tool. It's a bit like a business model canvas, but for a team. And it's a really powerful space. We just sort of step back from kind of the day work of actually sort of trying to do donut stuff and just saying like, what's our strengths and weaknesses? Why are we here? What's our goal and vision as a group? What do we need in our expectations? It's a really beautiful exercise to do, because the more we kind of show up and sort of show those vulnerabilities, the more we kind of cohere and build those strong bonds between us. The final example, and this is where I might actually share my screen, because there's some good examples. Here is the peer-to-peer learning journey. So I joined this last year. So Civic Square, we will be hearing about later, and Huddlecraft, who are kind of experts in peer-to-peer groups, convene these sessions. So a group of us joined together around this question: how does Doughnut Economics show up around the future of work? And so we met up on a regular basis, but rather than just being a book group, we actually took a chapter. And so I think I took chapter 6, and we had to build an activity around it. So it wasn't just talking about and being theoretical, it was put into practice. So this top image here was, I got my group to pretend to be consultants. They were helping a fast fashion brand who'd gone through some problems and had thrown out the board, and they wanted to become more regenerative businesses. How would they transition from the atypical bad business to a new one? And so it really put into practice the Doughnut principles, which again, if I put it into practice, really embeds that learning. So that was really powerful. We had someone who was a theatre kind of guy. And so he ran a session where we were running around a room, practicing being playful, practicing theatre methods as well. We learned about things like murmurations, how humans kind of work together in a group. And that was a really powerful, interactive way of doing things. The image below is we went to Birmingham to meet the Civic Square team there. We were building our towns of the future as well, how work would show up in that space as well. And it was just a really sort of lovely space and community to come together. So there's loads of kind of like bits out there to learn more about these things, but I think making it interactive and fun is really powerful. So maybe you want to screenshot these, but these are kind of the lessons which I gleaned from these things about getting started. Some of these echo what Rob was saying about defining a common objective, having someone or a group that is really looking at the logistics and the energy expenditure, booking the meetings, booking the Zoom links as well, make it as easy as possible, sending reminders as well is really powerful. Also having that tolerance, love and empathy for each other and how they show up, and being inclusive as well is really powerful. And that point about having fun. 2 final things: asking for help. There is lots and lots of help out there. Reach out to me and to other people, and we can sort of be a sounding board. And I think the final thing I'll say is about things having a start, a middle, and an end. Our group doesn't meet anymore. And it's a sad kind of fact that that happens. But in much the ways like life happens, you know, you're born, things grow and thrive, and then they die. But that thing, that beautiful point where we're together forms kind of the compost and learning for the future as well. So I think just recognizing that is something that's really powerful as well. So that's a bit of a canter through my experiences with these particular things. Happy to answer any questions you may have as well, but I really want to open up this space to the group to share any learnings and understandings that you've got as well. So the question I'm kind of asking people today is like, what small steps are you taking in your area to get started with Doughnut Economics? And what do you need? What help do you need on that journey? Maybe there's some collective wisdom here as well to share. But yeah, thank you for listening to my stories. And yeah, oh, the other thing I should say, just in terms of this, just in terms of the rule set, is we've not got a huge amount of time together. So if we can try as much as possible to keep things kind of pithy so that other people can share, be kind to each other, you know the drill. Yeah, thank you. And this is the awkward silence bit now. Eric, hello.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm also going to reference Prashval's, I hope I don't butcher that name, I'm sorry, question in the beginning of like, like, for example, like I'm involved in building like an English-speaking offshoot of a Spanish-speaking group that's about democratic economic planning, mostly involved in like research and like propagating that idea. But it's like everybody involved there is doing this on a voluntary basis, and it's taking like a lot of time to actually start building that group, like get momentum going. And we really realized that, oh, once we want to do like a bigger project, like just nobody has time for that. Like, do you have any tips on like getting those, like how do you manage that, like doing it on a voluntary basis and maybe get like some funds later down the line? Like, what are your experiences with that? And yeah.
Yeah, I can share a bit. And I think the other thing, that if anyone else has got experience, especially kind of on the fundraising element of it, I think that's powerful. I think there's this point about, well, one, I should say, in terms of the funding thing, if you reach out to Rob, He ran a session maybe a year or two ago, precise on that question about how do you get access to funding to help with your groups. So there's a rich repository of stuff where there's going to be other learnings to share there as well. So don't forget to do that. I think that kind of formation point, it's just really, really hard. And I think that because I'm part of so many groups where we're at that kind of like stage. It's like we keep meeting, we keep saying we should do stuff, but we don't do anything. And I kind of feel like, probably echoing some of the stuff that Rob was saying, really start small. And I think it's probably just having those initial kind of conversations, those meetings, do something that's really sort of simple to sort of show how we work together as a group, rather than sort of saying, oh my God, we're going to organize this massive thing. And then the overwhelm starts to set in. So I think definitely the starting small point. I think part of it is almost like that honest conversation.
Hi, I'll start again. Geeta Sharma, Chair of Borough Doughnut here in Middlesbrough in the UK. We've been running for about a year and a half now. And what we found during that time was, so we're talking about growing networks and how we build on the network that we have. First of all, you start off with a core group of people who are interested and who you seem to find yourself. Find each other in when you have that passion, and we were really lucky that we all happened to be in the same space at the same time. Sometimes that doesn't happen, a lot of the time that doesn't happen, but having that connection and then being able to look at how we wanted to build the movement forward. We took the notion of that maybe we should be looking at the policymakers and the decision makers in terms of if we wanted to make that exacting that change in terms of what's happening on the ground. And it was so hard to actually get into those rooms and have those conversations and we found that actually there is a lot more energy within, and I know Rob talks about this all the time about going where the energy is, but there was a lot more energy within the communities because they wanted to do something different. They kept on hearing about everything that was so... Middlesbrough is one of what would be classed as one of the more deprived areas within the UK. It's in the northeast of England, for those of you that don't really know the UK that well, and we when it comes to funding opportunities, when it comes to like infrastructure opportunities, there isn't, and there is a term here in England called levelling up, and it's supposed to be for the north, and it's not really worked out as it was advertised. So the communities have felt as though that they have been hard done on, and that they have been sort of not part of the conversations in making those decisions for them. So a lot of our energy went more towards that in terms of engaging the communities, engaging the wider conversation. And again, we were so lucky that it was such a diverse group of different people that were involved initially, but also had those links into the different types of communities. So I am a British Indian, and I had a link into a community that is very untapped for a lot of conversations. But then also, I happen to be in a place where I have links to different community groups as well. So it's really important to find those people, to find where you can have that conversation without people having the prejudice that if you're talking about Doughnut Economics or you're talking about anything to do with sustainability, it's all about climate change and climate action and the science behind that. That is a massive link, but when you start to understand the capacity that people have is very little, especially in the current climate that we have, and that it is about making what we're doing more relatable on the ground. And when we're talking to people, when we're looking at what their needs are, we'll find that there is an obvious sort of strand within Doughnut Economics that they will latch onto. Here in Middlesbrough, it's been more about the centre of the donut, the social foundation. So then once we've been able to have those conversations, once we've been able to look at how, put a spotlight onto some of the issues, some of the practical examples of how we can make a difference, community groups have been able to take some of those small steps. We found that it's been about making it more bite-sized. And from that, one of the examples that we've been able to do is we've developed an edible forest garden, because there was an area within Middlesbrough that they felt as though they didn't have opportunities to understand what fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, how they came about, and having access to that. So we've now developed an edible forest garden, with the community in mind, and the community are involved in looking after that, and they're deciding themselves what they want to plant, how they're going to plant it, and we have the expertise behind to help them. So we're trying to be more of an enabler rather than being going in and like sort of saying, you need to do this and this needs to happen. And I understand that each place, each area is very different. And I know places where it is more of that they've taken a much more front forward approach, where they've just gone, yeah, look, that's it. There's 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to open it up. I'll just summarise. It's been more about talking to the communities and having those links within the different communities and trying to marry everyone up. With that shared passion and shared want to do things different and be better, and helping with the capacity of things within the town. Right, okay, any questions? Anyone wants to share anything? I'd really appreciate it.
I've got so many questions. So I'm part of a small team that have just started up in Oxfordshire, a Doughnut Economics collective. We're in the really early days, and Oxfordshire's an interesting one because there's so much wealth in Oxfordshire, but there's also extreme poverty. So in Oxford, there's a part of Oxford that's one of the most deprived places in the country, and we've got these different cities that probably have it's different towns have similar profile. So the social floor the social foundations are very weak, and that's been broadly recognised. So we're at this stage though where we're trying to work out how we grow the network in a way that's meaningful. So we've been looking at, for example, like the Amsterdam example is where people, their first step was to bring visibility to everything. So one of our core functions we've recognised is to join up existing things and help co-create new collaborations, just like what you described there. But the physical how bit is what I'm kind of becoming a bit obsessed with, because all our energy could go in lots of different ways. Like, how would the platform work? And then, like, if you're going out into communities and sharing stories and sharing, like, how do you make sure that's joined up to, like, the local council and, like the really practical side of that joining up? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah. So again, it's about the people that we had within the room initially, and the expertise that they had. So again, I'm not going to try and like sort of blow my horn, but fortunately, I had quite a lot of links to different community groups, different community activists, different people who already had an interest. So when we started. And initially, when we started, there was like 3 people who knew about Doughnut Economics and were interested in Doughnut Economics. But straight away, I broke it down into well, okay, I know someone who'd be interested in the housing aspect. I know someone who'd be interested in who has those links within housing, who has those links within education, who has those links within the environmental sort of design, architectural sort of thing. So being able to bring those people to the table, and then they were then able to add their voice and their expertise. So it's always about making sure that you have the right people around that table. And again, as Rob said earlier, it is quite organic in the way that people will come, people will go. You will constantly have that adaptability. So understanding what your need is at that time and then reaching out to the people within your area that have those links, that have those connections, be it within local government, be it within the NHS, within the community, within like sort of any sphere that you know, even if it's actually I know someone who knows someone, having that person be part of it as well, then it's really important, making those connections and building. And again, sometimes there will be areas of the donut that people will just not connect with, but there'll be some part of it that is very much entrenched with what they're doing, what their passion is. So I've always found it easier making it more chunk size, more bite sized chunks, so that people can find what they are relating to. And then what you'll find is that with the work that they're doing, it will always link to the wider picture.
What you're saying is that people are basically doing doughnut economics without realising they're doing it.
Yeah.
By being a facilitator. So you've got someone who understands the desperate need for a shift in social housing, say. They understand where the deprivation pockets are, and then you connect that person with someone from the district council who like that kind of thing, and say, right, oh, how can we start to attract more social housing to this area through policy? Or
yeah, I mean, yeah, that is, if you've got an area where that works, that's brilliant. If you've got an area where the community voices needs to be more amplified, then that's what you need to be perhaps looking at. Yeah, I'm happy to answer anyone. I know Rob might be able to send out my email if anyone's got any questions, anything else, if we want to link up, and I'm more than happy to have those conversations outside of this. Thank you. Are you on LinkedIn? I am, Gitati? Yes, but you'll probably find me as Geeta Sharma, Gweta.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that we've got a slight change of scene here, and this is because the recording from the day didn't quite work. So we're going to have a conversation with Manas Araf now about his insights from working in Dubai. So first of all, I'll invite Manas to introduce himself and share some insights, and then we'll get talking about how we can benefit from working with the municipality as networks for change.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. It's very nice to be back here with you. So we had a conversation in our room on how donut city level or regional, especially the city level donut groups can work with local government, specifically municipalities. We had about 6 or 7 people in the room from Europe, North America, and Asia. And as you can imagine, there were a lot of different ideas because municipalities work in such different ways, because cities are governed in such different ways in different parts of the world. So the conversation was very interesting. I think a few lessons did come across, regardless of which region we were from. One was, those who had been using doughnut economics already talked about how it's a very concrete, easy to understand. And you can have the sort of the subjective and the objective, or the data and the stories built around this idea of the donuts. How you choose the 21 themes, and therefore it becomes a good framework which can engage communities, citizens, as well as political parties and then administrators in between, sort of figuring out what's actually going on, what are the needs and the priorities of the people. and how the Doughnut Economics model, therefore, can really be used effectively as a development tool, as a planning tool. So it can be a tool to bridge and create relationships. Now, a couple of thoughts that came up. One is that working with municipalities requires both working at depth in terms of not just working with the leadership of municipalities, but also at either sub-municipal levels or at local levels. So junior level officers, senior level officers, from the city administration to sometimes there are wards or there are districts, working with people at different levels within the city. But then also looking at not just the municipality, but also there may be other local agencies, like in India especially, a lot of functions in the city are actually performed by state departments. They're not part of the municipality, they're part of the state government. So how do you map out the different agencies or different organizations, which are different departments within a municipality, but also beyond the municipality, people who are running the city or providing services or making decisions? How do you map that and then see how to work with all the key different players instead of just being focused on a municipal commissioner or the head of the organization? And what this does is, one, it gives a more holistic perspective on what's going on. And you've got multiple touch points to influence things. But also when people change, you're not left without a relationship. You have always somebody else who you can start working with, and they will then recommend that whoever new comes in, sort of listens to you or pays attention or get them up to speed. And so there's a risk mitigation angle there, but there's also holisticness that comes with that. Now, one of the challenges that comes up in working with many municipalities is how do you maintain, or political, getting closer to government, is how do you maintain independence? And this is something, there were no clear, rules that came up, but it was definitely a valid concern or something that needs to be paid attention to from day one, which is to make sure you aren't then seen as some sort of contractor to the government, or an implementing agency, or somebody who runs around doing things that the government wants, or becoming like a public communication arm of the, we need to communicate this to people, go out and do it. Now, a lot of NGOs in many countries, including in India, many NGOs do struggle with that because they want to be close to the government, so they want to do what they want, but then you start acting like an arm of the government and do some of that independence. And so some of the things are, having senior enough, maybe having influential people become part of the Doughnut collab, or becoming part of the initiative, may act as a counterweight if there is too much political pressure or municipal pressure. So having the right people on an advisory committee or an advisory board, could be very useful to avoid such political pressure. And then again, just having, I think one person talked about how sometimes, within your team, you have a little good cop, bad cop. Look, I would love to help you, but, our bylaws or our senior management does not agree with this. So, what do I do? So you kind of have to, but that's something, again, depending on local context, one has to manage those relationships. There was a clear idea, though, that it should not be aligned with any politics. You want to be as neutral as possible. So again, if political winds change, different parties win elections, you're not sort of out in the cold all of a sudden. There was one other, somebody made that point. One thing that can be quite powerful is to identify who are the individuals in local authorities who are particularly interested in taking this forward. We think of these agencies as monolithic organizations, but they're not, and they have their own politics in between. You've got people who will be more interested and less interested. And therefore, being close enough to different people to understand who are the ones who really get it, who are interested in genuinely supporting the Doughnut effort, and maybe using them as sounding boards, using them as sources of information and ideas. And again, this could be tricky because depending on the culture of the government authority, they may or may not be able to come out in the open and share ideas or support. But how one makes it happen, I think individuals can definitely make a big difference. And yeah, I think the last one was, how do you build a certain solidarity among citizens so that while working with government or while working with other stakeholders, it's not to say that everyone has to present a uniform voice. We're not looking for uniformity here, but there's a certain sense of solidarity that, yes, we all want this, we are all in this together, which makes the government then say, okay, this is important to people, we got to give it some amount of attention. And therefore, the Doughnut team, the core team has to have that ability to bridge differences, to solicit viewpoints of people. So one of the books, for example, that I brought up is the books about how do you listen to people you don't like, or how do you talk to people you don't necessarily like, but try to find a common ground. And I think in that sense, it can really be it can be a process that evolves. Even the people who buy into the Doughnut Economics idea, how do they evolve to sort of bring in different voices, give equal space to everyone, while not diluting the essence of Doughnut Economics or what people are trying to do. But yeah, I think those are some of the key points that came up in how to work with local government in different contexts, in different places.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. And recording this a little bit later allows us to bring in a few threads from people who weren't necessarily in the breakout room. And from Amsterdam, we know from Rosa, who's the community manager, that they have had quite a long relationship now with the municipality. And so their recommendation would be that you don't have to wait before you've got all of your network plans structured before approaching, and you can actually establish relationships with those, as you mentioned, who might be advocates or interested from as early as possible opportunity. And those can deepen, evolve, change, adapt over time. One thing that you did touch on, which I'm interested in, is what happens when individuals within roles might change and how you then navigate that. Have you any thoughts on that? If you've built an established relationship with an advocate who might change role and the incoming person, any thoughts on that process?
So I've seen that happen many times, actually. Usually, if you have a good relationship with somebody and they change roles, it's useful, because in whatever they're doing, whatever their new role is, they could be useful in some way, they might be helpful in some way. But I think, again, in order to be able to quickly build up a relationship with whoever steps into that role, you want to make sure that whichever that role is, the people who advise that role or who influence that role or work closely. Because one thing is, when generally, at least in many countries, when people step into a new role, especially if it's a senior role in local government, they aren't super well informed or prepared for that role, right? So they need people who sort of give them a lay of the land, share ideas, and they need to know who they can trust. And if 3 or 4 people working in that department or working under this person or above say, hey, look, these are good people. They've been supportive. They're not just out to create trouble. They've got good ideas. I think that's something that could help. And the outgoing person might be able to put in a word to their successor, saying these are the people who have been useful or helpful. So sort of listen to them and treat them well. So I think it definitely helps to. I think the relationship building, and it's not something that comes naturally to everyone. But the ability to maintain those relationships and invest in it, I think, came up. Everyone said that the ability to build longer-term relationships is very important. And there'll be short-term frustrations, but one has to work through that while working with local governments or any governments.
Yes. And also a question that relates to this too is that how do you choose to, which avenue do you choose to approach? At which level of government, in which department, whether it's within the political or the organizational, and I guess if you have a finite amount of resource as a network, who are you choosing to build relationships with? And I wonder, I guess that could be according to the engagement process that are coming from the council. It could come from the high level strategic objectives of the council, and you try and align their needs with what the network might be able to support or kind of meet their interest on. I guess there could be different ways to think about, where you might choose to put your energy. Have you got any thoughts about that? If a network is looking to connect with the government, but there are just so many places that you could begin to engage. Any thoughts on where might be a good way to start? You mentioned the sort of the mapping of the different types of scales, but if you've maybe finished that mapping process and you think, okay, where first? What should we do? Any thoughts on that?
I don't know if there's a model. I mean, I think because the local context is also so different. The size of the municipality, the level of general interest or apathy to what citizens want. I mean, like in India, we work with some very tough conditions, right? I mean, they're literally your municipalities almost just could not care less, right? And then you've got other municipalities where they're good officers and they really want to do things and they're very eager for help and support. So there's a very wide spectrum there of the challenges one may face in building these relationships, all the way from very interested and eager to almost to indifferent in the middle, and then almost hostile at one end. And part of this comes down because look, let's face it, in many places there are fairly high levels of corruption even within municipalities, right? And when you start saying we need better services and so on, you're sort of you might be upsetting, or the fear might be that you'll upset certain power dynamics or money flows, etc. And those are therefore not easy things to look at. And that's why I think the different ideas we talk about, which is look for good people within the municipality, look for, or within the, not just the municipality, but amongst the local authority, that could include the police, the fire service, the NGOs, citizen groups, and then of course different parts of the government. Finding good people who really care and getting their support could be very valuable. Having prominent citizens or spokespeople who align with the idea, they might be able to help with some of these relationship building kind of issues. And then making it a broader citizens movement means it's not just about, and this takes time, but if it becomes a larger citizens movement, it's very hard to manage that. Then you've got a whole other set of relationships and conflicts and priorities to manage. But maybe that can also help with bringing in more people who can then add their voice to the process and sort of provide that support. But I don't know if there's a playbook which necessarily works in all situations all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think something that works with the Doughnut is you don't necessarily have to go and engage people. You can actually say, here's an interesting idea, and invite people and see who turns up. And I think that's something that a network might choose to do, and go where their own energy is to maybe create a local portrait of their place, the city, for example, and invite various people from across the municipality to come in and explore and be a part of the conversation and see who turns up, from all the various departments and levels and roles within it. But to also recognize that there's a tool that Leonora has created that maps the different pathways that cities can take with Doughnut Economics we've witnessed so far, called Cities Let's Get Started. There are 9 pathways within that, one of which is creating what I've just mentioned, that portrait of place that actually a network can really support a city with. And so actually creating almost standalone projects the city can engage with can be a really opportune way of having a starting that conversation before necessarily diving into the very deep, complex transformation work they might need to do. Starting with a discrete project can be a good way to engage as well. And also making the city realize that the network is tapping into the citywide stakeholders of many different types. That is a wonderful opportunity for the city to have that type of relationship with the network in that way. But yeah, I can post a link to the Cities Let's Get Started tool, and it's a good read and one that you can also, as a network, recognize how you might approach a city too. But I think we'll probably wrap it up there, because we've.
I'll just make a plug for the Urban Handbook. I forget exactly what the title is, but the Urban Handbook that came out, I think, a few months ago. I think that's also very useful. We had copies of it and people looked at it. I think there's a lot of useful ideas and insights in that. So I think it's great to see that at Deal, you're looking more specifically at the urban lens and seeing how that works, because cities are complex and they're big and they can be difficult to navigate. So appreciate that, the support and ideas.
Yes, that was the Doughnut for Urban Development, the manual and tool available on the website. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Manas. It's been great to hear your insights. We'll head back to the main session again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good luck.